And just be cognizant, go out and do a little bit of research. You don't have to do much to find it, just so you can validate some of the things that they're telling you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast, Divorce Right, HR Solutions for Divorce in the Workplace. And today is a really important conversation to be had because the military and veterans experience divorce in a very different way. And so I wanted to bring on an expert, and I'm bringing today's conversation is going to include a wonderful woman by the name of Jolisa Webb. She is your divorce coach confidant. As a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force, executive in the federal government, and divorced mom, Jolisa Webb has decades of leadership experience in human resources management, strategic communications, diversity and inclusion, protocol, and more. Jolisa is the owner of Beauty in the Midst, LLC, a woman and veteran-owned small business company. Beauty in the Midst, DBA, Divorce Coach Confidant, is rooted in healing presence and holistic action and outcome-focused philosophies. As a divorce coach confidant, Jolisa specializes in working with women in leadership or senior executive roles, and especially with female veterans. She relates to their struggles to maintain the image of themselves they worked so hard to cultivate, because she knows that divorce can negatively impact a woman's sense of self-worth. Whether they are contemplating divorce in the midst of the legal process or struggling to move on after the ink is dried, Jolisa guides clients through reframing the experience as an opportunity for growth. No matter the struggle, no matter the pain, on the other side of heartache, something beautiful remains, she says. I help my clients turn their attention from the story of divorce to the business of divorce. Welcome, Jolisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, darn it, Vicki, you made me sound so good. Thank you.
Well, you are that. You're that in a bag of, you're that in a bag of chips, my friend.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction and the opportunity to be on your show. I am so excited.
Well, I'm so glad you're here because, people don't really think about this. So are divorce rates higher for military members than for civilians?
It depends on what you read, but statistically, most of the research seems to support that they are slightly higher. I think the national average for civilian divorces is like 2.9, and the military is something like 3.0, 3.1. However, and I'm going to go ahead and lead into the next question. I think another is the divorce rate for women in the military is higher. It's higher than the rate for men, which means it's higher than the rate for the civilian cohort. And that is where something interesting starts to happen.
Tell us about that. What are some of the differences between military in the military divorce?
Yeah. Some of the main differences center around the laws that are involved. When you get a divorce in the military, not only do you deal with the state and the state laws and federal statutes, but there are also special laws governing military, like the Uniform Code of Military Justice, in which certain things that are not particularly criminal in the civilian population are criminal in the military. For example, adultery. Adultery is something that is punishable by the Uniform Code of Military Justice if it's proven. And if you get a conviction for in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, that is a felony conviction.
Really?
So adultery is very serious. Yes, it's very serious. And part of what this goes to is this concept of maintaining good order and discipline in the military. And so the last thing, and whether or not it goes to people's morals and their values, and whether or not their integrity. And integrity is very big, when when you think about it in terms of national security, when you think about it in terms of security clearances, when you think about how it could compromise somebody's ability, if somebody were to get in a situation where someone was trying to blackmail them potentially, and depending on what kind of access they had, what might they be willing to trade for that? So adultery is one of those that, in the civilian world, nobody's going to go to jail for committing adultery. In the military, they could possibly go to jail, get a felony conviction. So that's one of the real differences with the law. The other thing, the other laws that are particularly important are the Service Members Civil Relief Act, which sometimes because of deployments or because of other things, you know, a person may file for divorce, but if the individual, the service member is not able to get back because of their work or something, the law allows for a 90-day to put that on hold, the proceedings on hold for 90 days. And there could be a possibility of that being extended, just depending on the circumstances. But that's intended to protect military members not only from a divorce, which is considered a lawsuit, but from other suits, like suits with landlords and other people. So that's part of why that law exists. And then you have the Uniformed Services Former Spouses Protection Act. And that's where we start to look at, you know, the property and the benefits that were jointly earned during the marriage, you know, the thrift savings account, you know, the retirement pension, you know, access to medical, commissary privileges, bases, all of these things that were earned during marriage and while the spouses, you know, while one of the individuals was serving in military service. So it's a lot to dissect. And also depending on sometimes military members may be stationed or assigned in one location, but they may maintain their state of residency in another state. So then it's like, okay, where do we get this divorce? Or if that's the case, the service member assigned here, but their state of residence is Florida, because some people do that for tax purposes, or Texas, or someplace that won't tax it. But the person that they're married to during the separation has never lived with them for whatever reason, and so they live in another state. Now you start to see how this can turn into a really, and if there are kids involved, and depending on how long they've been married, you know, what their entitlements are. So it can be a really big deal. It can be a really complex thing. And Vicki, if you don't mind, I do want to just touch back to why we think women's rates are higher than men's. Because this is really,
that's something I would love to know and understand.
So one, and when I was doing research around this, you know, in general, it's not something we can say 100%, but there are speculations that it's because the military, a lot of times the benefits, and even with the Department of Veterans Affairs, though they're trying to do better, the benefits and the way those organizations and structures are set up, they're set up for the military member to be the man and the spouse to be not, you know, a non-working. So the military member is male, not female. So most of the services and benefits and just the whole hierarchy of how things operate is from that context, right? That makes sense. That's one thing. Number two, there's speculation that the military tends to attract more traditional men who are macho, bravo, you know,
right,
and less traditional women. So women who are less interested in being homemakers, who don't mind, you know, being in a more dominant, more aggressive positions and positions of command and authority and that kind of thing. So you have that concept that's at play. And, you know, where does that line get drawn? You know, when I'm at work, I'm Commander so-and-so. And when I come home, if I don't know how to take that off, it can be problematic, you know. And then, you know, in those instances where the military woman, the military member is the female and the spouse is a civilian, does he want to follow her around? You know, does he want to continue to be uprooted and followed around and you know, be the dependent and those kind of things? You know, can he carry that? Can he wear that without feeling emasculated? You know, and in my situation, when I was married, I was actually married to another military member. Mm-hmm. And so then it becomes whose career is going to take precedence? Who's, you know, who's gonna make the sacrifices, you know, once we get to that, if we ever get to that point. where somebody has to make a choice, and so if neither person is unwilling, then, that can become an issue. So again, there's so many things to be considered, or so many reasons why we speculate that, women who are military members may have higher divorce rates than men who are military members, and also than women who are not military members.
Interesting. It sounds to me like our military needs to maybe step out of the 50s and 60s. What do you think?
Yes, and to be honest with you, I think they're gonna be forced, because in addition to being in the military, my other job, my day job is I work at the Department of Veterans Affairs in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the fastest growing demographic of veterans is females.
Mhm.
So now we're going to be forced kind of to look at some of these things and, address this paradigm shift. And so I think it's coming sooner than later, just because of, you look at some of the graduates from West Point and the Naval Academy not too long ago, and we had some of the highest classes, highest number of females graduating from those classes since the inception of those schools. So yes, it's changing a lot.
Wow, so interesting. So, I know that, we are talking to HR people very, like you. What advice could you give to an HR manager that may have someone in the military or a veteran that they're dealing with that is contemplating divorce? What advice would you give?
Well, one of the things I would say is, encourage them, if they don't already know this, to make sure that they check in with the JAG, the Judge Advocate General, on the installation. Whether you are the military member yourself or the spouse, you're still entitled to some legal advice from that office. They don't actually handle divorces, but they may have some, be able to tell you, give you some general ideas about certain entitlements. And they also may be able to refer you to a lawyer in the community who specializes in dealing with military members who are divorcing. And that is very key. I think, as we were just talking, and I was telling you about all those laws and that impact and all those different scenarios, you really want to make sure that your attorney is well versed in understanding military law and the military requirements and all those things. And even before that, I would actually tell them, before they talk to the lawyer, to get a divorce coach. And why? Why would I say that? Because divorce can you imagine how many emotions are involved in this?
It's crazy. I know.
Can you imagine? I mean, the frustration, the organization that's required.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
lawyer don't want to pay your lawyer to deal with that stuff. You
Right.
just, yeah, just
Yeah, you're able, what I love about you as a divorce coach and your expertise with the military is that, you can walk either the military member, the veteran, or their spouse through this process. I mean, you've talked about things here today that, quite frankly, I was unfamiliar with. And, I know that you have, a plethora of legal experts that you can call upon that actually understands this stuff. Because I can't imagine that the traditional family law attorney has a really deep understanding of all of those nuances.
right.
Yeah.
And especially when it gets, like I said, when you're talking benefits, when you think about somebody that's been with this person for 20 years or more. And, there are laws that talk about how long you stay married before you're entitled to certain benefits. And what does that look like? And property that's accumulated and all kinds of things. And then because of the fact that certain things can be criminal in the military that are not criminal in civilian, you want to be careful about how much of that, the ugliness of your marriage you put out there, because this is one of those times when you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face. If you get that military member in trouble, any of those benefits might, if their benefits are affected, then that might spiral down to what you get in terms of alimony or child support or any of that thing. So you really want to have someone to be your thinking partner, someone that you can talk with to help you through some of the emotional stuff, so that when you show up with that attorney, you're more credible. You and your attorney are more able to focus on the legal aspects, or you and your financial planner are more able to focus on the finances, and you're focused on the business when you meet with those experts, as opposed to walking in and just dumping the whole thing on them and spending a boatload of money for it. So
exactly right. That's the one thing that I agree with you that we bring to the table, which is keeping those people's jobs as their only job and not as that of a family therapist, right? That's such a huge cost in all of this, where it doesn't need to be. And I agree. So let me ask you, so as we wrap this up today, one of the things that we always do on this podcast is we ask our experts for HR tips, things that they can take back to their team and implement and quickly. So what are 3 of your top tips for HR managers?
Okay, so first of all, and I do this with my HR professional, my peers that I work with. Remember that H in HR. Remember to be human. Have compassion. HR can be very technical. A lot of people don't know that, and it can be, well, this is the rule, and there you have it. But this is a time for exceptional compassion, because you never know what that person is going through. And in the military, if one or more of your people are in the military or even veterans, there are a lot of nuances that are different. So have some compassion, listen to what they're saying, make some space for them, and just be cognizant. Go out and do a little bit of research. You don't have to do much to find it, just so you can validate some of the things that they're telling you, and be a soft space for them there. The other thing I would say is, even though you're trying to be sensitive and compassionate, you still want to make sure that employee knows that they're accountable for getting their work done. Because after all, this is still a place of business, right? We still have customers that we have to satisfy. And so there has to be a delicate balance. So as much as you support them, you also want to remind them of their responsibilities, and, create a space so that if there are times, if you guys need to have discussions around workaround or flexibilities or things like that, to go to lawyers' appointments because childcare fell through, whatever, make it so that they are approachable, and that you make yourself approachable to have those conversations. Check in on them, because this is still a member of your team, right? And the thing about that is everybody else is watching how you treat this person when they're in such a vulnerable state. So you want to be sensitive to that. Make sure that the employee has tapped in with the employee assistance program, which I hope will have certified divorce coaches assigned, because this is something, divorce coaching is special. It's not like regular life coaching. It is niche life coaching, because divorce is the second thing next to death, I think, in terms of traumatic experiences that any of us will deal with. And so it's very important to have the right coaches in your, to be able to deal with this. And it might be helpful for you to talk with the HR person, to talk with the employee assistance person as well, just so you can get more educated and more comfortable, and be more supportive of what's going on. And finally, make sure you do what's necessary to protect the organizations from lawsuits. There are a lot of states that have marital and familial discrimination laws, where you can't discriminate on people based on their marital status, whether or not they are single parent, any of that stuff it's not under Title V of federal, but some states have these laws. So as your employees' status changes, you want to make sure that you're not doing things that could give the appearance that, now because this person's a single parent, you're treating them differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are great. The challenge with, the military divorce is not, from an HR perspective, it's just kind of not understanding. So this was a great topic to give them an understanding of something that, I'm in the industry and I did not know these things existed. So I can't imagine that an HR person has a working knowledge of this kind of issue. So it's really important. And so, I want to end today, Jaleesa, with, if you could give your contact information so that those that are interested in getting in touch with you can do that, whether that's an HR person or whether that's one of their employees that is either married to or a veteran.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. My website is www.divorcecoachconfidant.com. You can contact me there, or you can email me at jaleesawebb@divorcecoachconfidant.com.
Awesome. And we will have that
And
information.
you can also find me on LinkedIn at Jaleesa. You might find me at Jaleesa Dudley on LinkedIn, or you might find me at Divorce Coach Confidant. But and I'm in the process of combining those accounts. So those are, I would look forward to hearing from you. I so much appreciate this opportunity to be on this, on your show today, Vicki, to talk about this. Divorce is one of those subjects. Personally, I think we divorce is something we kind of tolerate in our society. We've made peace with the fact that it kind of happens, but we're still not at a place where we have conversations about it that we need to. And as a result, people often feel shame, they feel blamed, they feel alone in this experience that is second only to death, the death of a loved one, in terms of the trauma, the toll, the emotion that it tends to evoke. And so we have to do better. We have to do better.
Absolutely. The amount of cortisol that is created that causes so much other destruction, bad behaviors for sure, but also it impacts our physical health. And so if we can help reduce that in any way by having these discussions, I think that that's really valuable. Jaleesa, thank you so much for being here today. And we look forward to having more conversations with divorce experts for those HR specialists that need some support in dealing with, up to 10% of their business, their employees will go through a divorce this year. So we look forward to being having that opportunity to support you and your business. Jaleesa, thank you so much. And we look forward to having you being a part of our team here at Divorce Right. Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.